She says, and our speaker today had 103 ahs and ums, and I'm like, oh no, I'm supposed to be good at this. Anyway, I would like to propose that we start doing that, and that way you can, it gives you a reminder. Oh, I'm not supposed to do that. I'm not supposed to do that. And so then you automatically start thinking, and you become more aware of it. And it becomes much less that you do it. You can get rid of it really quickly when you're reminded of it immediately upon doing it. So I would like to make a proposal that we do this on a voluntary basis to start with, and then if it proves to be very successful, then maybe we can make it mandatory. But at this point, I think that I would like to propose that we make it a voluntary thing.
All right. Thank you, Lawrence. Oh, we're going to vote on this. Does anyone want to second your use of the clicker?
I want to second it.
All right. Anybody opposed to the clicker? All right. Everybody in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. We will now use the clicker on a voluntary basis. Thank you, Lord. Good old help. Everyone needs a little help with the field work.
It's a dog trailer
It is.
for our dogma.
Does that count? Does that count as word of the day already?
Sure. No.
No.
No. Not quite.
Okay, moving along. I'll now introduce our Toastmaster for tonight. This is his first time doing the Toastmaster role, so it's always exciting. Might be a little nervous, but it's not a big deal. You'll do awesome. Diego's been with the club maybe 3 months now or so.
Yes.
And he's, ripping through some speeches, doing a good job. So I'd like to introduce our Toastmaster for tonight, Diego.
Hello, Toastmasters. We have a really good agenda for today. Unfortunately, Maurice had to step out of doing his speech, so we'll turn it over to Lawrence, who's going to give us our first speech.
How much time do you want me to spend on this speech, by the way? Is this going to be the 13-minute speech or a 7-minute speech, or what do we need to do?
10 minutes.
10 minutes?
Yeah, you can 10 minutes.
Okay. 8, 9, and 10, right?
8, 9, 10. Okay.
8, 9, and 10. My fellow Toastmasters, a very interesting life that I've had. I lived through the Cold War era. I remember when I was very little, when I went to kindergarten, and we're sitting in the classroom, and then we hear this alarm on the loudspeaker, and the teacher says, everybody climb under your desks. It's the nuclear explosion alarm. And so we would crawl under our desk, and we'd be hiding under there and wondering, what is going on here? But of course, being as little as we were, we didn't quite understand that for some reason, they had us climb up under our desks when there was going to be a nuclear explosion. And somehow, I really don't think that a desk was going to save much of anybody if they had a nuclear explosion. But this was the first time in my life that I had any kind of a relationship with war and the Cold War specifically. So I'm sure that must have had some major impact on my life, and a major impact on the lives of my entire generation. Now, we were not horse-drawn carriages and all of those kind of things like we had been in the past. We were now a modern world. But still, there was such a fear of the Cold War. So it was kind of interesting that the generation that was born into that Cold War and brought up in that Cold War also became the peace generation. At least that's how they started out. The entire hippie movement, the peace protests, and the civil rights movement, all of these things happened during the Cold War. And it was a great fear of the dogma of the communists. They did not want them to spread this dogma throughout the world. Of course, it still spread quite rapidly until a certain point, and even today there are many people who idolize this type of ideology. But I'm not going to get into the politics. But the point is that people who are brought up in a society that is focused on them and us, it has to produce a certain amount of fear. It has to produce a certain amount of anxiety, even in small children. We may not recognize it as that, as small children, but I'm sure that the first time we crawled up under our desk and it's like, you gotta hide under your desk because, a bomb might go off. I'm sure that we really had a certain amount of stress when that happened. Now, interestingly enough, the town where I was brought up, and the first place I went to school was Broad Street School in a town called Horseheads, New York. Now, the way that this town got its name is back in the Revolutionary War, there was a general, I believe it was Steuben, who was coming through that area, and then they were kind of trapped in that area by some big snowstorms, and they had to stay there for the entire winter. They were camped out there for the entire winter, and they started running out of food. There was no settlement or anything in that area at the time, or at least no settlement of Americans, or not Native Americans. Okay, there may have been Native Americans, but there were no Europeans. Excuse my... Anyways, there were no European settlements there. So they were just living there in that area, and it turned out they had to eat their horses. So they ate all their horses so that they could survive through the winter. And then when they left, later on, when settlers came and moved in there and started plowing up the fields, they kept plowing up these horse skulls. So they called the place Horseheads. That's how the place got its name. So war has been so prevalent in our society. There's so many things that have been named because of the war. But it doesn't have to be that way. We don't have to be divisive in our relationships. I can be conservative. You can be liberal. I can be a Christian. You can be anything else you want. An atheist or anything else you want. That's fine. We don't have to be separate. But the main thing is, how do we view ourselves? Do we view ourselves as, I am a, put in whatever you want in that space, and it's probably going to be wrong. You're not that. That may be a part of you, but that's not what you are. I really want to believe that I am part of a cosmic family of love that spans the entire universe. I want to believe that every one of us here is a part of a cosmic family of love that spans the entire universe. And then we can stop looking at each other and say, this person is that, and I'm something else, so we're not the same. Because it doesn't matter if this person is that or not. We're still the same. We just have different ideas, different thoughts, different races, different religions, different ideas. And that's what makes life so exciting, is when we can be together, when we can share together, even through our differences. Then we can really feel like we're part of that cosmic family of love. So, how can we really create this feeling, this connection, without dogma, without religion, without race, without whatever? We are all part of the same cosmic family of love, and that our differences are there to make our life exciting. But then there are also many other ideas that may come into play here. For instance, am I limiting myself by saying that I am just a part of a cosmic family of love? That is the real question, Mr. Toastmaster, or Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Lawrence, for that impromptu speech. It was really fascinating to hear you talk about what potential consequences might have emerged in your childhood through the dogma between capitalism and communism, and then thinking about how that generated a generation of peace-loving activists, and in turn how that type of movement might be used forward for this current generation of talking about love and acceptance between people without borders. Thank you very much, Lawrence. We do not have a second speaker, but this gives us a great opportunity for us to move straight into the table topics, and our table topics master today is Maurice. Maurice, please come forward.
Good evening, fellow Toastmasters.
Time for everybody.
Yes. We have a volunteer. Okay, Diego.
D-I-E-G-O.
Your table topic for this evening: is it more important to love or be loved?
Thank you, Maurice. So is it more important to be loved or to love? I think that depends upon the circumstance, because if you're being loved by people who aren't necessarily out for your best interests, or people who aren't necessarily a good group of people to be with, then in that case I would say it's important to love. But if you happen to love someone and you get into a toxic relationship with that person, then I would say it's better to be loved by your family and your friends, who are people who you can count on, who don't form a toxic relationship with yourself. So this is a really tough question to answer. I would say specifically in my case, I think it is better for me to be loved, because I feel I selected a really great group of friends and acquaintances, and I'm very, very fortunate to be surrounded by family members who really care about me and care about my personal growth. And in that sense, I feel that my need for social connection with someone romantically is kind of already being fulfilled by being surrounded by people who love me platonically. So I think in my case, I would say it's more important for me to be loved than to love someone else, based on the circumstances of the people who I surround myself with, who share blood with me, and those who don't. I'm going to turn it back to you, Mr. Table Topics Master.
Okay, next volunteer. Okay, Cody. Is there such a thing as perfect?
Thank you, Maurice and Mr. Topic perfect? It's a great question. It's something that I haven't really thought too much about. But in my opinion, I don't think there's such thing as perfect, because you always get to the level where you think you want to be. And then once you reach it, you discover there's a whole new world out there, a whole new boundary, a whole another level that you can reach. So going from my experience, I thought once I got through high school, got through college, landed a good job, yeah, everything would be perfect, right? I could have the ideal life that our kind of American dream promises. But, there's always something. We're always going to want something more. And achieving, I guess, the sense of perfect would, it would be kind of a boring world if everybody was able to do it. What else is there to achieve if you become perfect at something? That is my opinion on this perfect achievable. Thank you, Maurice.
All right, thank you. Okay, next volunteer.
I'll try.
Okay, Sandra. What is the simplest truth you can express in words?
Just an easy one to start.
Easy.
You got this, Andrew.
The simplest truth I can express in words.
Yes.
I would say love would be the simplest truth, because it takes on many different meanings. Love can be expressed with words. It can be expressed with actions. It can be expressed in silence or body language. So love is the simplest word I can express. Thank you.
Okay, next volunteer. Okay, Yu Ying. To what degree have you actually controlled the course your life has taken? To what degree have you actually controlled the course that your life has taken?
Degree.
Well, degree, not degree
What
as
amount?
a, not as,
amount?
what amount, yes, amount, yes.
How much have you controlled your destiny?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good question. When I took my PhD degree as a PhD candidate, my major is molecular, biomolecular. But problem is, I was to be a pediatrician 10 years. I totally don't know about the molecular stuff. So I came in the laboratory. I make a lot of mistakes. For example, there's agarose. Agarose, you can make the agarose gel. It's two different. One is for the culture bacteria. The other for the test the DNA. I made the first gel for DNA used bacteria agarose. So that means I have a lot of things to learn. The only way I have to do is studying very hard and can learn everything about the molecular stuff. And I did. I control this course and I got my destination is get obtain my PhD degree.
Okay, so Rachel's next. What is your greatest skill?
Okay. Please. Thank you. Fellow Toastmasters, I've been asked what my greatest skill is. And tonight, I would like to say that my greatest skill is showing up. Not always the most glamorous skill, but a very good one to have because it exposes you to a lot of new circumstances and new individuals. Sometimes it's not always in our control what we can do, but the very least we can do is be there. And sometimes that's the most important. At least that's what I found. So in my experience, showing up opens you up to a lot of different skills and experiences that you can use later on. It can be underestimated at times. Nobody thinks that just showing up might get you very far. But I found that in having the courage to be there, you can take that first step that will lead you on a new journey. Thank you.
Okay, Lawrence. What's the difference between settling for things and accepting things? Hold on, let me start over. What's the difference between settling for things and accepting the way things are?
My fellow Toastmasters, in our lives, we very much are put in a situation where we have to be in that situation. Sometimes it is not the most favorable situation, but we have to put up with that situation. And then we have to be able to, in many cases, overcome it and move forward. So, by being put in a situation does not mean that you have to accept that situation. Because if you accept the situation, then you become complacent because I'm here, I'm stuck here, that's all I can be. But when you are, doesn't matter if you are put in a situation, you still have the ability to pull through or overcome. If it's a bad situation, you have the opportunity to overcome it. So, in my opinion, the difference between accepting a situation and being put in a situation, or accepting the circumstances and being put in a situation, are that when you're put in a situation, very often it is beyond your immediate control at that moment. Accepting it and living there for the rest of your life is your choice. On the other hand, being able to see that situation and how to pull yourself out of it, it's not necessarily accepting that or denying that that exists, but denying that that is where you have to be. So, this is where we want to live our lives. We want to live our lives constantly moving forward and enjoying the journey. Mr. Topic Master.
And that concludes our table topics. And sticking with the dogma of being in the Toastmasters educational program, I will relinquish the lectern back to the Toastmasters.
Well done, Lawrence. Well done. Way to stick it in there.
All right.
Now we're going to move on to the general evaluation section of our Toastmasters meeting, and our general evaluator first is Cody. Oh, it's Lawrence. My mistake. Also, I don't know if I was clear, but definitely click at me if I make it feel weird. Sorry, I wasn't clear on that.
No
Okay.
problem. I have heard it. Will do.
Please, Lawrence, you have the lectern.
Okay, good evening, good evening. As many of you know, one of the most important parts of our educational program is our opportunity to find out how well we do in our meeting. So when we give speeches, we want to be able to have the evaluation of our speech, find out what we did right, find out what we did wrong. What can we improve? So that is kind of the purpose of the communication portion of our meeting. Now also, we want to develop the leadership portion of our meeting. So that also has to be evaluated. So this evening's meeting, it's going to work out all right, but it did start a couple of minutes late because our president kind of fell out rather late in the game, and no one was quite ready to take over for him. So it did get started a little bit late. We did go through club business and get into our, turned it over to our Toastmaster in a timely fashion. Now, because we only had one speech, we are a little bit still ahead of schedule. So that is why the evaluation can be explained a little bit better at this point. Now, I would like to introduce our first evaluator. He evaluated the impromptu speech that I gave. I don't know what he used as criterion, but I'm going to be interested to hear what it is. Mr. Cody.
Thank you, Lawrence.
No, it's not mine.
Oh, sorry. Oh, okay. Thank you.
So my criteria consist of what I've picked up from evaluating other speeches throughout. It's a custom criteria. I just took some general notes and we'll go through that. So overall, I thought it was really good and exciting speech. I liked the opening, you can sense the passion, and the storytelling in it was really good. I can kind of feel the fear that you guys had during the Cold War, getting under your desk, and I can't imagine that experience of knowing that a bomb might drop when you hear the alarm. So that was good. It brought me into that time period and brought me, almost in the classroom. So it's a great job on that, giving the details of the period and creating a picture during that sense of time. As far as body language and movement, I thought it was really good. I liked how you stepped away from the lectern for a period of time, kind of got a little more intimate with the audience. That was great. Your hand gestures are always good, appropriate, and not too much, not too little. So good job on that. So the one thing for me, and maybe I just missed it, but I kind of felt a little bit lost at one point, like the transitioning from you talking about the Cold War and a little bit of history of how the town got the name, and then going into how that kind of affects the modern day people, maybe the mindset. So maybe build into that a little bit better, but overall I thought it was good. Both the history, or how history creates a mindset of people, and then showing how that can affect the present day. So the theme was good, but maybe just a little bit better during the transition part. But overall, I thought it was a really good speech. I really enjoyed, specifically the descriptive story. I think you have a really good gift at describing things and bringing the audience into your life experiences. So great job, Lawrence. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We didn't have a second speaker, so we'll have to hear from our timer about how things went this evening now. Would Ewing like to tell us what went on with our timing?
There's the speech section, Lawrence is 8 minutes, 14 seconds. In table topic section, Diego is 1 minute, 30 seconds. Cody is 1 minute, 11 seconds.
Zandra.
Sandra is 41 seconds. Me is 1 minute, 48 seconds. Rachel is 53 seconds. Lawrence is 2 minutes, 11 seconds. In evaluation, Cody was 2 minutes.
Right on the bell.
That's it. So everyone's good in the top.
Very good. Thank you very much, Ewing. Now, we would also like to hear from our grammarian. And Rachel, we hope that we can get a good grammarian's report from you. We didn't hear too many clickers, so I guess it can't be too bad.
It is not. I found though that in using the clicker, it didn't register with me sometimes until I felt it was too late to click. So I think that may be something I'll have to work on in future meetings. There's one for me. For Lawrence, you used once and restarted and repeated a few words throughout. You used but and you know as well. For Maurice, I didn't count anything for yours. Diego, I would have clicked at you, but I didn't hear any. So there were a few double repeats and restarts as well. Cody, a few so's and you knows. Xandra, nothing. You did wonderful.
Yes.
Okay. And Yu Ying, I think there may have been a few ahs thrown in there. I know that I've had a few ahs in the past few minutes here. Lawrence, I didn't notice any filler words during your table topics.
On your, when you did your table topics, I did not notice anything substantial that was a problem with your talk. I didn't hear any filler words. And I don't think, I heard you use so once,
Yeah.
but I don't think it was a filler word. I think it fit in the sentence. It was, some people use so, like other people use like. But I don't think that's what it was, so I think that you did a good job also.
Thank you. Okay. For the word of the day, Lawrence used dogma 3 times, which I think is a new record. Excellent. Maurice, you got dogma in there as well, so a few uses of the word of the day tonight.
Okay, very well. So that is the end of the evaluation section. We're way ahead of schedule. We are currently at about the point where we should be starting our general evaluation. So I would like to relinquish the lectern back to our Toastmaster, and probably going to be doing an educational overview. If anyone has one, if they don't, I'll give one. So whatever.
Thanks, Lawrence. Thank you all, everyone, for providing some good reports on the evaluation section of our meeting, and in a very succinct and concise way as well. Always much appreciated. I personally do not have an education overview content in the back of my, in the back seat of my pocket or anything like that. Does anyone else here have an educational overview that's not named Lawrence? I guess it's just on the cards today, gang. Okay, Lawrence, do you want the lectern again for the
Yes,
educational
I do.
overview? All right,
Yes, I do.
Here
Okay,
you go.
educational overview.
Thanks, Lawrence.
All right, let's see what I can give as an educational overview, if you will all bear with me for just one moment. We're, like I say, quite a bit ahead of schedule. So, click, click.
Oh, there you go.
Yes. one of the interesting things that I was able to get into is Guide for Training. Now, all of us at Toastmasters are here for multiple reasons. One, we enjoy the company of those that we're with. We enjoy having a nice experience here. Click, click. Anyways, but another reason that we are here is so that we can learn. And in order to be good learners, it is always better if we have good teachers. Now, we don't necessarily have the instructors here that are going to give us anything. Hopefully most of us still have contact with a mentor. I don't know if anyone, we have to set you up with a mentor at some point, but I think everybody else at one time or another had a mentor. And so the idea behind the whole thing is that when we are mentors, we are going to have to teach. So there are certain things that are important if we are going to be helping each other to grow. One of those important factors is, how do people learn? If you understand how people learn, it's going to be a lot easier for you to help them to learn. One important point to understand in that is that no one can teach anyone anything unless that person is willing to learn, willing to change. And that's a fearful thing for many people. So sometimes you have to kind of bring it a little bit in the back door. Try to inspire them to want to change, and then you can teach them. Now, if you look at a Toastmasters training, learning new information and new skills is one of the keys of Toastmasters. So in this group, more than likely, most of us are not worried so much about change, whether we are changing or not, because that's why we're here, in part. That is why we're here. So we have a unique opportunity here to work together with each other. So some of the things that we want to do is we want to understand what is the difference between a speaker and a trainer. There are many people around who are absolutely fabulous speakers, but you're never going to learn anything from them. Think politician, right? To be a good politician, you have to be a good speaker, because you have to get people to believe that you're going to give them everything that they ever wanted. Right? Who was it? Was it Churchill that said that a good politician will not only tell you to go to hell, but they'll make you look forward to the journey. So they're good speakers, but they might not be teaching you anything. Whereas on the other hand, a person who is teaching sometimes may not be a good speaker, but they have that value that you really feel something coming from them that inspires you to move forward. So that kind of understanding is really helpful. Also, there are different types of areas where you can work. Whoops, I hit the wrong button. Now, there are different things. For instance, a speaker presents information to an audience. They lecture, stories, visual aids, whatever, and they introduce ideas to an audience, but they expect the audience to listen quietly while they are speaking. They also act as entertainment. Now, on the other hand, someone who is training presents information. They also use discussion or group activities to get everybody involved. All right, they help the participants learn to develop new skills, and they expect the participants to become actively involved. They also, of course, act as a coach or a facilitator. Now, the real good teachers, the people who become good training representatives, they use a little bit of both of these. So the ideal trainer is going to be able to lead a group using good presentation, good stories and visual aid, and also at the same time present the information and get the occupants involved. Okay, both also they're going to be able to prepare and understand the material before they get there, so that when they do present it, it's going to be in a precise fashion. It's going to guide them in a direction that they want to go, and it's not going to have those bumps and mistakes as were expressed in my spontaneous talk, where I went from one topic to another without clarifying why I was trying to bring the wars of the past to the wars of the present, to the peace movement that comes out of a peoples that are immersed in that Cold War. So that was kind of what they want to do. So when you have someone who is learning something new, adults like to understand the purpose of what they are learning, and they like to make their own decisions. So those are things that your proper training wants you to help to do. Now, adults also like to share their experience. So giving in a good learning environment, you should be able to share experiences and be able to better carry that learning experience. And that is why very often in your learning environment, you have discussions. You have opportunity for debate, because people have different ideas and you want to bring them together. It was also has been said that the cheapest and most comfortable way of learning something is from somebody else's mistakes. So listening to other people and sharing experiences are going to help you. And then finally, for a good learning experience, an adult has to feel motivated. And many times in Toastmasters, when you get into the advanced speeches, what they talk about is at the end of the speech, you want to have a closing, right? A call to action. That's a very critical part of the speech, a call to action. Get them motivated to do something. So, point is, I would like all of us, if we could, to spend some time looking into how can we be better at working together with our fellow Toastmasters, the younger people at our work, newer people at work. Whatever it is that you're doing, you have the opportunity to help those who know less than you. And you also have the opportunity to learn from those who know more than you. So my call to action is learn how to teach and learn how to learn. And then we all together can move forward and create a better society, a better work environment, and better life in general. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thanks, Lawrence. Truer words could not be said about what it takes to teach, especially the thing about you need someone in order for someone to learn, they have to be open to learning and willing to accept change to become a better person. We have an award section as well. I see Cody. Cody's name is here. Do we have awards to dole out today, Cody? No?
No worries.
Okay. I see the VP Education as well. Yu Ying, do you want to review? Do you want to set up the next agenda?
Yeah,
All right, go for it.
okay, the volunteer for speaker. You want to set up? Right?
Well, yeah, well, next week is an alternate week, so if I prepared next week, then I can do it.
The same topic.
Yeah, well, I may,
Setting goals, right?
well, it may change.
They change, okay.
It may change slightly, yeah.
I will not be here next week. We
Oh,
Disney
okay.
World.
Nice.
Icebreaker, is that is that,
Is this a speech yet?
okay, I can do my
Okay.
icebreaker.
Oh, good. It's the best
That's
way
always-
to get it done.
Yeah, that's always
Volunteer.
the one that's really fun to listen to. Those icebreakers.
Toastmaster.
I could be Toastmaster.
Table topic? Want to be a table topic? Yeah, I can do that.
Yu Ying, you're doing table topics?
Mhm.
Awesome.
And then general evaluation. General evaluation. Okay. And what else? Evaluator. We need a two because we have a two speaker. You want to be?
Lawrence, you're going to be the second speaker? Next, who's the second speaker?
Maurice.
Oh, Sandra and Marge. Oh, okay. Darn, I was planning on speaking next week. Oh well.
You can speak
Too
over
late.
ahead.
Excuse
So,
me.
You can speak. Mhm.
Too late.
No, Sandra, you need to have you need to have the spotlight next week. My speech can come next week. It can
The
wait.
week.
I'll be Maurice's evaluator.
Okay. Here you go. Okay. Who is the second speaker? No, second. Who is the second speaker?
Sandra's the second speaker.
So we need a one more.
Well, that's pretty good. We got.
Yeah.
I can do that if it's still open next week.
Give it time.
General.
Yes.
Thomas should be back next week, I presume.
So if there are any more roles that need to be filled, just put somebody in there
Okay.
and send them an email.
Okay.
Let them know that they're there.
Mhm.
Then they have to refuse instead of. If you're not here, you don't get choices.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
Lawrence with the strong arm method, of course.
That's right.
So.
Hey,
Okay, we're done.
We're good?
Okay. So you know how to put new people in the system, right?
Oh yeah. I'm sorry because I'm so busy. So.
Okay, okay, no.
yeah,
But this time I will.
finishing school, right? Finishing up this semester.
A lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Three things to do together. So make my so big.
Amazing.
If there's no objection, this meeting is adjourned.
Okay, one thing I would like to mention before it's adjourned, please. Elections are coming up.
Oh,
Make sure that if you want to take a leadership role the next year, this would be a good time to do it. If no one else comes up for it, well, I'm putting myself in the running as VPE, and I will compete with anyone who wants to be VPE or resign, whichever case may be. But please think about what position you could take next year and put your name in the hat, if you
Lawrence,
please.
I think for the benefit of everyone, what is the time commitment outside of Toastmasters meetings for these types of officer roles? Would you
Now, the president and the vice president of education are changing ever so slightly because of pathways. So I don't know what the increased time frame is. But the president has maybe a couple hours a week at most outside of a meeting. The VP, probably the same. The other positions have much less of a responsibility, as the treasurer is basically just sending out emails every month saying, don't forget to pay us. And then they have to also make sure that the things are correct. We haven't been keeping up with the Toastmasters legal requirements for a secretary, because we have not really had a secretary in years. But that responsibility was supposed to be mostly during the meeting, typing it up after the meeting and disseminating it amongst the members, and keeping track of all of the club history, which has disappeared. Although we have 30 some odd years of history, one of the older clubs in the state, but we don't have any of that information anymore. So
We adapt.
a couple hours at most outside of Toastmasters, if you would take a leadership role.
Any kickbacks?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
I haven't got any.
More likely to come.
I'm still open though.
Say that again, Cody.
So you're more likely to come to meetings if you have an officer role.
True that. True that.
Well,
But
it
You
will
do
be-
need them to move forward in your training,
Yes.
your competent leaderships.
Yes.
And in the new Toastmasters,
Right.
that's, you're gonna have leadership roles too.
Right.
Although they're not gonna be counted the same way.
Well, under the old system, being in an officer position for 6 months will be awarded towards your advanced leadership bronze. But you gotta, it'll be there, but you have to finish your CL first though.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then a full year in officer position and going to a officer's meeting or TLI, that'll go toward your
Yeah. Yeah, also bronze and gold.
bronze. Yeah, bronze. Yeah.
And then you have advanced leadership, which would be your area or division or something like that,
Right.
if anyone goes that way. Of course, it could lead up to eventually becoming president of Toastmasters International, should you ever decide to go that far.
Is that volunteer or is that paid?
As far as I know, it's still all volunteer.
Wow.
Holy moly.
As far as I know, it is all volunteer. But again, I don't think it's a full-time position. I think it's, you do a few things and show up at the conventions and at home alone in your spare time, you go through the paperwork.
When are elections? Are they happening next? They're in June. Okay.
Yeah.
Mid-June?
Should happen in June.
Gotcha. All right, team. Y'all heard it first. Y'all heard it first here. Any objections? The meeting is adjourned.